So let's give Tanya and Gabe a nice warm round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. We're super excited to be here. We're going to go over a lot of great things today. First, we're going to start off with what is branding? Why is it important? Are you capturing your social media presence, right? Is your branding carrying through? How many of you guys watched Glengarry Glen Ross? Remember that famous movie, right? What was that famous slogan? Always be closing? Well, that and also always be closing, right? Today, we have a new theme for you guys, and that is always be branding. So we're going to keep saying that throughout our presentation today. And Gabe is going to talk a little bit about exactly what branding is.
Sure. So when we talk about branding, a lot of people think of a logo design or marketing materials. Well, a brand is that, but it's that and a lot more. So we're going to talk about some sort of design aspects, but we're also going to focus on some other things. If you hit the slide for me, Tanya. Basically, it's the feeling or emotion that you give to a client. It's really what you leave. It's your leave behind. It's your takeaway. And that's something that's always working. There's 4 pillars to the branding. There's differentiation, relevance, esteem, and knowledge. Differentiation is simple. It's what sets you apart. Is your product new? Is it shiny? Is it groundbreaking? A great differentiation example is 7-Up. They were the un-cola. They were a clear cola, and they were with Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola were all brown colas. They said we're going to be the un-cola, and they really owned that. So they differentiated themselves in that way. Relevance. Is your differentiation important? So if I go to the post office and I need to mail a package, I see a brown box, it's $2.99. I see a white box, that's $3.99. That's not a relevant difference to me. I'm only going to shop on price at that point. That's not really a place you want to be. I just want to get it's a means to an end. That's not where you want your brand to be. The next thing is esteem. You think of luxury brands, Mercedes, Rolex, they have great esteem, but it's not necessarily just price. Esteem can be a lot more than that. And then you have knowledge. So if you have great differentiation, great relevance, great esteem, but nobody knows who you are, it's all pretty much wasted. So we're going to talk about that. The foundation of branding is consistency. So consistency in everything you do. Like Chris said, a great logo, great social media, great marketing materials, but it's also a lot more. When I go into your place of business, I want a great experience, and I want that same experience when I call your business. I want your employees to look a certain way. That's consistency. Consistency in everything you do. Because when you have consistency, you have an expectation. That's a good thing. I know what to expect. As a business owner, you probably all couldn't stand a vendor or a client where you don't know what you're going to get from day to day. Expectation's a major part of branding because expectation builds trust. And trust leads to sales, and that's what we're all in business to do. But the great thing about that trust is it's not just a one-time sale, like a speaker said before. When you have those sales, it's repeat clients. And they tell their friends. That's really where you want to be. And of course, the inverse is true. If you're inconsistent, people lack expectation, then they lack trust, and of course, your sales will suffer. That's branding in a quick nutshell. Now, Tanya, take over.
Great, thanks. So here's the thing. Now you guys might be wondering, geez, well, what is my branding message? Who am I? What is my brand? And so we're going to go through a couple slides to help you kind of create that for yourselves. And so we're going to share with you first exactly what is a brand. So let's talk about it. It's not an icon, a slogan, or a mission statement. It's basically a promise. It's a promise that you've made to your customers on what they're going to receive, what they're going to hear, how they're going to feel, and we call that the brand promise. And how you come up with that is first you figure out, you as your business owner, what do you own over your competitors? What systems in your brand do you own that you're amazing at? And third, what does the customer want? And when you overlap those 3, you have a sweet spot, and that's how you can determine what your brand is and weave that through everything else that we're going to talk about today. So why is it important? Obviously, it's huge because there's a perception. What you say, what you do, who you are, everything, whether you're a salesperson or the owner or a big corporation, people have expectations. Who you are to them one time is possibly who you are to them the second time, third time, fourth time. Lisa did a great job today explaining, what is the tone, what does this mean, what is the reaction? And this is exactly why it's so important. Our next slide shows, depending on where your customer or your consumer is in their cycle with you, are they just finding out about you? Have they been a loyal customer with you for a long time? That will also determine what type of media or what type of communication you might use with them. So if it's someone who's brand new, obviously you might not, maybe they're just kind of shopping around. If you just started spamming them with, hey, here's this loyalty program, look at this, do that, they might be turned off because that would be considered spam. However, if it's someone who's been with you for a while, then creating these amazing, fun loyalty programs for them would be something that would be very attractive for them. So we're going to help you create a story, help you figure out what exactly your branding is. And really what it boils down to is what's your story. So I'm going to share with you my story, and hopefully this will give you an example of how you can compete against the huge national brands, because the great thing about being a small to medium-sized business owner is that's why people want to do business with us. They don't want that long line at Bank of America, or they don't want to call and be on hold forever at ABC Corporation. They love that, they can call Bonnie and she's going to answer the phone and she's going to help them out. They love that Sandy's going to come to their office and hold their hand through something. That's what we own. So I'm going to share with you my personal story on why I created my brand, Sky Strategic Marketing, and what my tagline is. And I'd love for you guys to also keep in mind, what's your story? Because we all have one that's amazing, and the world wants to know it. So a little bit about me. When I was born, my father was 65 years old. Right? I'm not adopted, promise. And it was great until I was going to school. I thought everybody else's parents were in their 60s, early 70s. Well, obviously, most of the other kids were not. They did not have such older parents like I did. And what that did for me was, as I got older, I felt a little bit more pressure because I felt nervous. Well, what if my father doesn't see me graduate? What if he passes away before? Because think about it. By the time I'm 5, he's already 70. By the time I'm 15, he's 80. So you could see, why I would think that. So here I am in 11th grade, and I figured out that I want to graduate after 11th grade because now my dad's in his late 80s. What's going to happen? So I go to my guidance counselor and I tell her what my mission is. Hi, I'd love to graduate at the end of this year. So she looks at my paperwork and she says, it's physically impossible. You need X amount of credits and there's only this amount of time and it's just impossible. So I felt a little discouraged and I said, okay, well, why don't you tell me exactly what do I need? How many credits? What's the criteria? What's the maximum? Kind of give me the whole guidelines. So she did. I took all the stuff home, and I actually created a plan that fit and that I was able to do and graduate. So I came back, I presented it to her. She said, wow, I never thought about it that way. Boom, I graduated after 11th grade. Yay, my dad got to see me. So fast forward to college, a similar thing. I'm in my junior year, and I thought, geez, I really got to get this going. Now my dad's 3 years older. I have to make sure that he sees me graduate. Same situation. I went to my counselor. She said, there's no way. You need like 29 credits. It was something crazy. So I asked her, okay, great, tell me the whole story. What exactly do I need? And she gave me that criteria. I went home and I figured out a way. What if I take these 2 classes here? What if I do this? What if I do that? And she said, yeah, you can do it. And that's what I did, and I graduated early, and yay, my dad got to see me graduate college. So what that did for me was realize that I didn't have to take things at face value, and there was a way, if I kind of rethought how or what was possible, then I could create what I needed to help myself succeed. And so that's what I do for my clients, is I help them kind of rethink what they're doing, and then we focus on something else, which is not, oh, well, there's 500 banks, and how can I compete with this? There's something amazing that each person, each business owner has, and then we let the whole world know that. So the bottom line of the story is, what's your story? Knowing what that is, and now that you've all heard that story, you might go back and be inspired to maybe rewrite something that's on your website, or kind of look at your business plan a little bit differently, because just by telling you that story, maybe you might look at me just a little bit different. And that's how we want to present ourselves in front of, other companies, other customers, because that's what we have to offer, is this uniqueness that we get to offer over these humongous corporation gorillas, giants. So Gabe's going to talk a little bit about how you do it.
Okay, so we have some tips up there. Don't be afraid to be different. Like Tanya said, she has a different story Don't be afraid to tell your story. Create a perception which becomes an expectation. Use a creative and positive approach. Be consistent, like we said before, and find ways to add value. Those are the ways to build a great brand. I want to show you just a few examples of some brands we've worked on here locally. So this is Carrollwood Country Club. They were actually Emerald Greens. You might have known them as that. Earlier this year, they rebranded themselves. So they really wanted to become a luxury club. So we used a color palette relative to that. We used golds and blacks and whites, really luxury type colors. And beyond that, we print things on a textured paper. So even down to the business card, the way it feels, that's piece of your branding that you should always be thinking about. This is Cross Bay Club, which is actually a conglomerate of 4 clubs, but the point of this is, it was a summer campaign. This looks a lot different than what you just saw, even though it's another golf club, but this was much more family-oriented. We used bright colors, of course, to just show a fun, exciting experience at the golf club. Runway Express, this is kind of a cool story. So that everyone here obviously walks into gas stations probably once a week or twice a week, and gas stations aren't really a place you want to spend your time. So Runway Express is actually a gas station right near the airport, and what we decided to do was really own that. We show pictures of the Taj Mahal and the pyramids and kind of put you in another place. When you go to the soda fountain, you're not just going to a place that says soda, it says jet refueling. When you go to the bathroom, you're going to the lavatory. And we keep that perception even all the way out the door, which they talk about in that Disney book. So when you actually walk out the door, you're exiting the departure gate.
Neat.
Just to leave that last image in their mind. Spark Fitness, they're the future of fitness. First of all, we used orange because psychologically orange is a color of change. So people that are trying to work out and get in shape, they're trying to change themselves for the most part. Some people are just maintaining, which I hate those people. But we use a very modern color palette. We use modern fonts, and it's just very bright and welcoming. So.
Great. So do you guys remember what our theme for today was? What was it? Always be branding. So now we talked a little bit about some foundational things that we could be doing. What we really want to do is make sure that we're weaving these things into our online presence. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to champion our branding now, then, and repeat. Or now, later, and repeat. So the same thing we spoke about, the brand promise, we actually have the same exact layout for our online presence. Bless you, you cute little mouse. We just need to make sure that we're carrying that conversation through, because imagine if you were this one way, right, in person or on paper, but then online you had this totally different voice. That would not make any sense, right? So what we want to make sure is that you're owning your social media identity. You're not thinking of it as 2 separate things. You're allowing them to flow, the messages, to make sure that they're both consistent. Again, one more time. Thank you. All right, so one of the neat things is to make sure that everything that you're doing is turning heads, right? You don't want to just post something to post. You don't want to just share something to share. So Gabe's going to go through some amazing examples. We're going to start off big and then kind of go through some local brands. Take it away. Okay,
so Target's first up. Obviously, they're not the Neiman Marcus, and they don't want to be the Walmart. They want to be somewhere in between. They want to be hip and cool. You see that in all their design. If we look at the next slide, they post a lot about recipes. They give ideas. They give free downloads. And they do some deals, but not an exorbitant amount. Always remember that a coupon devalues your brand. If I say that you can have my services, but you can have it for 25% off, then what's the value of my services? So even Target, a big corporation, only uses deals about 10% of the time. Keep that in mind. Next up is the Tampa Bay Lightning. We were all just there. If you were in this room and were there, you know a little bit about this organization. So again, of course, visually everything's very consistent. But what the Lightning do well is that they create excitement, passion, loyalty, fan interaction. One of the things I talk about with my clients a lot is that we live in a very impersonal world. It's an on-demand world, and there's not much interaction. So if you can really give people that sense of interaction, of being in the moment, you can go a long way to really developing your brand. And then we're going to talk about TBBO, the place we're at right now. Of course, they do a great job with their visuals, but some of the things they do well, like Chris was saying, they don't give this. or sorry, they don't give this, they give this, right? So that it's a creative and positive approach. A positive approach is 95% more effective than a negative approach. So when we create ads for people, we're always taking a positive approach, and I recommend you do that with your social media. Don't be the snarky guy, be the uplifting girl or guy.
Great. So, I mean, the theme that we're trying to convey today is that stories connect people, especially for your social media presence and all of your digital things that you're doing. This is a great way for a brand to just communicate positive things that are going on without just saying, hey, check this out. Whoa, over here, check this out. A story really allows you to showcase everything, but in a positive manner. And again, we're continuing making sure that everything we're doing branding-wise via foundational is also going on with your online presence. So we're going to go through some branding tips. The first is have an awesome logo. If you ask 5 people, if you give them your logo and they're like, oh, what is it? Or they say the wrong thing, then you're doing a bad job. Because it should be easy for everyone to notice what your logo is. If you have to explain the whole thing, then that's kind of a lot of work, so it's easier to just have something that would be easy for someone to understand, and it stands out and makes an impact. Huge, be one with your brand. So again, in making sure you're in alignment with what your messaging is, one way to do it is actually write down, this is my branding image, this is my brand promise, this is who I want to be. Put that on a Post-it note by your computer, and anything that you do, look at that and say, is this in alignment? Is this action in alignment with what my message is? If you go crazy posting these things and it's not in alignment, then probably not. But if it is, if it's supporting the same theme, then great, good job. And there's other things, be consistent, be true to your brand. You'll feel great when everything that you're doing is in alignment with who you want to be and who you want your brand to represent. The second is to integrate your brand. You could do tons of things. You could buy promotional products. You could be wearing a cool t-shirt. You could have buy sponsorships at events and be out there. You could do great things for your referral partners or your clients. One fun thing that Kim and I do at Sky is every crazy holiday, like for example Cinco de Mayo, because we were out of the box. Last year we dressed up in sombreros and we made ponchos. We made ponchos for the dogs, and we went and we visited our clients and we passed out chips and salsa. Or some clients got tequila. It just kind of depended how much money they were spending. So what we want to do is our brand is that we're creative and out of the box, and so we have to talk our talk. So think of different ways that you can constantly integrate your brand.
The other thing we sort of touched on was create a voice for your company. I said don't be the snarky guy, be the positive guy, but there's lots of different voices you can create. You can be the voice of luxury. I love the Mercedes tagline is the best or nothing. But if you look at their social media messages or their marketing materials, they have a consistent voice, speaking luxury, high end. No worries. If possible, train one individual, because when you have if you have an organization with multiple people and you have one person running your Twitter account, one person running your Facebook account, things get lost in translation there. So if possible, train one person to handle everything if you can, as much as possible. And next is develop a tagline. I just told you the Mercedes ones, but we have the King of Beers, Life is Good. These are just quick hits, quick ways you can brand yourself that stick with people. Again, stay within.
So the big thing is to be consistent and everyone? Thank you. So we're Gabe and Tanya. Gabe's with Shea Creative, and I'm with Sky Strategic, so thank you so much for having us.
So let's give a round of applause.